In this video, I'm going to talk to you about the real-world experience of having Asperger's syndrome, what it's really like on a day-to-day basis, the things that are difficult about it, the things that are good about it. This is going to be based upon my own personal experience, but also my experience with other people that I know that also have Asperger's syndrome. Hi everyone, my name is Adam and I've been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. I regularly upload videos discussing autism and Asperger's syndrome and things to do with it. I will also be talking about in future other psychological topics, as I do have a bit of an academic background in psychology. So if you're new here, consider hitting the subscribe button and you'll be notified when I do upload these videos. I'd love to be building up a community with you guys, and we're trying to reach out to everyone that is perhaps also experiencing similar things to what I do. I just want to say thank you very much for checking out this video, and I'd like to, if possible, start with a discussion that reaches out to you a bit and ask you a question. Ask you, what is your experience of having Asperger's syndrome? Or what is your experience of someone else's Asperger's syndrome? You might not have Asperger's syndrome yourself, but you might know someone that does. Let me know in the comments below, and we can start a conversation about what is it that you find particularly difficult, or what is it you find particularly good, even about having Asperger's syndrome. Today is not particularly nice outside. I hope the weather is better for you where you are. I just thought that I wanted to talk to you about what is having Asperger's syndrome really like. I'll talk about some of the good points and some of the bad points. This is obviously not going to be an exhaustive list. It's just going to be some of the major points about having the disorder. So I'll start with a good point, and that is that we tend to have very good attention, very good continuous attention to the same task, particularly if that task would be mundane and repetitive to other people. Somebody on the spectrum can be very, very good at keeping constant attention on that one specific detail, which can be a really good thing. So we can become really, really specialized in doing things that perhaps many other people might find too boring, too mundane or meticulous to do that. So that can be a good thing. So now a bad part about having Asperger's syndrome is that we never stop reassessing the past, particularly negative things or negative events in the past. We never ever stop going over it. I mean, I've got memories in my mind of things that happened 10, maybe even 20 years ago that I've probably gone over thousands of times in my head, and going over it never produces a new solution. All it does is make me feel bad, but I just don't stop doing it. It's like, I think most people go over negative stuff that has happened to them in the past, but it's just a bit more extreme in Asperger's syndrome. We really kind of obsess over it. So that's particularly bad. While I'm talking about constantly going over negative things, that's another one of the characteristics of being on the spectrum, is that I've spoken to other people that are on the spectrum, and this is definitely the case for me, is that we have this constant voice of assessment in our mind that just never stops. No matter what happens, even as I'm speaking to you, that voice is still telling me all the possible directions that I can go in this one-way conversation, all the possible things that I could say. And the reason I know that other people that are on the spectrum experience that is you very often see people that are on the spectrum have difficulty with speaking to other people. And interesting, it's not the same as nerves. It's not that they are nervous. It's that it's this constant voice that is telling them all the possible directions they could be going in, and so therefore, and it can overwhelm what they are currently saying, so they end up interrupting themselves as they are speaking. And a famous example of that is if you watch any interview or any presentation from Elon Musk, the CEO of Tesla and SpaceX. You watch any interview with him, and he's clearly not nervous because, you know, he's been an international famous billionaire for well over 10 years. So he's well used to presenting to people by now. It's not nerves, but if you watch him, he can rarely make it through a full sentence without interrupting himself, either starting the sentence again or saying a different thing, and I mean, I may be wrong about this, but my theory is that the reason he's doing that is because he's constantly assessing the million different directions he could go in, and that interrupts his current voice as he is speaking, which can be really annoying. So the only time that I can think that constant voice of assessment stops is when we're asleep. But it might not even be then, because we probably dream using that voice. So it's basically just a never-ending voice. I should point out that voice is not psychotic. It's not another voice. It's not another personality. It's just me, but on the inside, if that makes sense. So now then, so let's now talk about another good point, and that is that we tend to be brutally honest. I mean, this can be a bit of a bad point and a good point at the same time, because of course most other people that are not on the spectrum, they need to be lied to. It's not really, lied to sounds a bit harsh. It's kind of like the truth needs to be sugarcoated or covered in some type of way to avoid hurting their feelings. The classic example of that would be when a girl asks a boy, how does this dress look? A boy that is not on the spectrum will know naturally that in that circumstance they need to tell the girl that it looks great, even if they don't like it. Now, someone on the spectrum is much less likely to do that, because they at least in my case, I won't know that I'm supposed to lie in that situation. Now, that particular example, I do know that I'm supposed to cover the truth in that situation, because I'm 29 years old and I've learnt that by now. But my point is that naturally, my instinct does not tell me that I need to lie in that situation. My instinct does not tell me that I need to save that person's feelings, if that makes sense. So the brutal honesty can very often, unfortunately, land a person with Asperger's in hot water, because we very often say things that are inappropriate or that are hurtful to other people. On the flip side, it can sometimes be a good thing, because I'm pleased to say I have met a girlfriend that she actually likes my brutal honesty, which is a very strange thing. I should point out most people don't. But there are, and this is like I say, a good part about it, there are people out there who actually like brutal honesty like that. So, not everyone doesn't like honesty. And I can give you another example. When I was at university, when we had done a particular exam, I think it was halfway through the degree, when we did a particular exam, and everyone had done poorly on that exam. The median grade was something like 50, which is, as the name suggests, 50%. So everyone had done pretty poorly on that exam. But interestingly, in a class-like situation, and in that class there's well over 100 people, nobody was talking about how they'd done poorly. Nobody was willing to admit to it, because nobody wants to look like a bad psychologist. Adam walks into that room, and I sit down, and I just say, "Oh God, I did terrible in that exam. I only got 48," and everyone in the room is like, "Wow, okay, that's wow." And then they started sharing how they'd done poorly. They were like, "Oh yeah, me too. I only got blah blah blah." And, "Oh yeah, me blah." So sometimes the brutal honesty can have good consequences, because it ended up making people that are not on the spectrum, it ended up making them be more honest and be more open about the experience of doing poorly on this exam. But what's interesting about that situation, it's not like I walked into that room and I thought, right, I'm going to make all these people talk about the reality of the situation. I just had no idea that I was supposed to lie in that situation. So I just, like a bull in a china shop, I just said it without even thinking about it. So as I say, that there are, most of the time it lands us in hot water. Most of the time we say things that other people don't want us to say, which is quite bad. But sometimes, occasionally, it can be a good thing. So, yeah, it's a bit of a good and a bad point. Another one of my favourite good points about being on the spectrum, and this is definitely the case for all the other people that I have met that are on the spectrum, all the other people that I've met that have got Asperger's syndrome, is that it seems to be that all the feelings that we are supposed to have for other human beings, we seem to have them for animals instead. So, in fact, I've not met a single person that has Asperger's syndrome that does not love animals. There may be some out there that don't, but most of us absolutely love animals. Now, I would surmise, I think that most, even people that are not on the spectrum, love animals. That's not uncommon. But I think with people that are on the spectrum, we love them just that bit more than most other people. You know, I'm not sure what it is. It just feels like we can connect with them much easier than we can connect with humans. So for that reason, we just absolutely adore animals. So if you know someone that's on the spectrum and you want to please them, get them an animal. Having said that, actually, maybe not, because they might love animals, but they're not necessarily great at looking after them. At least in my case, I mean, I absolutely adore cats, I adore dogs, but the mess they make, I can't really handle. So maybe getting them a pet isn't necessarily the best thing to do, but maybe, I don't know, take them to a zoo or something. Something involving animals. So I would say and as a final thing we're going to talk about now is, even though, again, there's lots more things that come with having Asperger's syndrome, but I just wanted to touch on some of those points, is that this is much more a bad point than a good point, but self-created pressure can be and is immensely intense and immensely harsh. So this comes from our extreme attention to detail. We have a lot of attention to detail. As a matter of fact, we see details that other people don't see. That can be a good part, but the bad point is we tend to be obsessed with those details, and it develops or it manifests in this perfectionism, in that we have to be this perfect version of ourselves all of the time, and unfortunately, the thing that's different from now normal people, as they're called, neurotypicals, people that are not on the spectrum, can also have perfectionist personalities. But the difference between Asperger's perfectionism generally and normal perfectionism is, generally speaking, people who have Asperger's, it's like we are perfectionists, but we never actually attain that level of perfection. It's like we are constantly chasing this never reachable goal of perfection that we just can never achieve. At least that is the case for me and the other people that I know that have Asperger's syndrome. So that can be a big source of depression and anxiety and all that sort of thing, is that we're just never the version of ourselves that we feel like we need to be. But it's not like I'm. And the thing that's really strange is that I'm aware that other people don't live by those standards at all. You know, I can give you an example. If I was to go shopping, for example, and I'm talking about just going grocery shopping, so just going to a supermarket, I will have to dress formally. As ridiculous, that's why I'm dressed formally as I'm speaking to you now. I'll have to be this kind of perfect version of myself. I can't just be casual. Now, I will be wandering around the supermarket and I will notice there'll be people who are in their pajamas. There will be people who are in their shorts and a shirt covered in paint and it's got holes in it and whatever, because they're only supermarket shopping. Why should they care about being well dressed? But I will notice those people and I will think, my God, I wish that I could not care about what people think. I wish I could not have this perfectionist attitude and be able to just be completely relaxed. I honestly don't believe, and this may just be me, but I honestly don't believe that people on the spectrum know how to relax, genuinely. I would say that's kind of the major experience, is that we are quite uptight and serious almost all of the time. At least that's how it works for me. So, but as with everything, that's not necessarily, it's not always a bad thing, because of course having this perfectionist attitude can mean that you can produce some really fantastic work. You know, you can if you're particularly obsessed about something that just has to be the right way, then you can end up producing things that most other people could not produce. It also means that if you put someone with Asperger's in a normal job, they are very likely to see inventive and creative solutions to the same problems that other people just can't see the solution to. So, you know, it's this kind of perfectionist, detail-oriented attitude is not always a bad thing. It's just, this video was me trying to talk to you about what it's like really living with that kind of attitude, and that is that we're just extremely harsh on ourselves, because of course human beings are not perfect and they are never going to be perfect. So if you are constantly striving for perfection, you're going to constantly be in a state of anxiety and depression, because you're just never going to achieve that. So yeah. Sorry to end this one on a bit of a downer, but I wanted to, as I say, I want these videos to be as real as possible. So I want them to be talking about things that perhaps most of the people would not be willing to talk about. So more videos like this will be coming along very soon, so don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you all soon. So thank you very much.